And in West Africa, or staying in West Africa, some retired military generals have cautioned Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and elected governors in the country against breaching the provisions of the nation's constitution. They believe Nigeria's constitution remains sacrosanct in such a way that all elected public office holders should subscribe to. The former top military officers condemned what they called a flagrant disregard for the Constitution in the absence of good governance. General Alexander Ogomudia, former Chief of Defense Staff, regretted the wave of coups in Africa in recent time, while saying that there is no moral justification for coup against democratic governments. He also charged politicians to keep their campaign promises and respect their country's constitution. Glad to say joining us on the news tonight is Ekiyor, the convener of Integration Summit Group, Nigeria. And of course, we'll look at some of the things in this current report. Good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. You had in the report we just read out that a former top military officer, a former military chief in Nigeria has cautioned, the politicians to practice good governance. What's your take? What would you say is expected when we talk about good governance in Nigeria?
Okay, so thank you. First, we need to put the issues a bit straight. I'd love to see this retired general caution in the military, not to govern caution and democracy. The reason for that is that the worst democracy is better than whatever kind of military rule that you see. Military rule is a complete hijack from the citizens. Democracy is about people selecting leaders and having a voice. So yes, I agree with him in the sense that it says government needs to be transparent, open, and provide good governance. But I expect that his warning should be to the military not to have any idea of thinking of a coup in Nigeria. And I can tell you for free, Nigeria is a different country. We have a population of about 200 million. We're getting entrenched in our democracy. It's a risk to think about a coup in Nigeria. I think that citizens have a right to ask questions and to push government to do what is right at all the times. This government inherited a dead horse. It needs to resuscitate it. It needs to build it up. And so we're feeling the brunt of what has happened in the last 8 years. And I'm surprised where these generals were. Why didn't they ask Buhari to sit up? Why he was a general retired like them? They had the chance to engage Buhari. He led us to this point. And we need to build back this economy to take a while. It was the base in the last 8 years, and people kept quiet. So I think that the warnings from retired top military officers should be that military officers now should submit to the supremacy of the Constitution and not to begin to think like the other countries that are carrying out coup d'etat now. We have a rough time in our country. The citizens are feeling the bite, but this is a backlash of what has happened in the last 8 years.
Interesting, Chris. Democracy has been practiced in Africa for quite some decades now. If the former chief of defense staff, a retired general, is saying that he's cautioning, he's regretting the wave of coups in Africa in recent times and talking about good governance, why do you think we have poor governance on the continent, despite the prospects of democracy, the things that democracy is meant to lead to, we're still having a poor governance?
Yeah, okay, so it's a lot of factors. First, it has to do with the docility of citizens not asking for their rights and demanding for the right to be done. It has to do with the fact that politicians have been able to keep citizens poor, so people think more with their stomach than with their brain. But the level of poor governance we experience, particularly in our country, it's because of the lapses in the organizational system, the bureaucratic system. Every politician is a successful thief because the civil servants working with him conspire to provide enablers for him. Until Nigerians and citizens become patriotic enough to ask the question, to stop corruption, to stop supporting bad governance in terms of facilitating the looting of politicians, we will continue to go around the cycles. Excuse me, no politician is going to be able to steal money without the conspiracy of the farmsects, the directors, and the system. Because if they flag it up, the politicians would know that they're being watched. The corruption agencies themselves have become corrupt. So they need to sit on the EFCC, the ICPC, and all of those agencies need to go back and be patriotic about pursuing corruption. And then the electoral promises must be kept. Those who are appointed into government responsibility must know that they stand in the gap for the citizens. But we begin to think in that patriotic light, good governance will still continue to elude us, because these people are just amassing wealth for themselves, and it's a terrible situation across Africa, and this needs to stop.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much, Chris Ekiyor, Convener Integration Summit Group Nigeria, for your time.
Thank you very much. Good evening.